Hello everyone, let's have more news about the Steelers, but first don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Steelers Insider reveals more dirt on players who wanted George Pickens traded. The George Pickens trade from the Pittsburgh Steelers to the Dallas Cowboys came as a surprise to the public, but as more information comes out, it appears it was not a surprise to the Steelers locker room, and some players even applauded it. Longtime Pittsburgh Steelers writer Mark Kaboly said that the right players were fed up with Pickens' antics, and this week he elaborated even more but refused to name names. Kaboly appeared on 93.7 The Fan, and the host mocked him for dancing around, naming Cameron Hayward as one of the big names on the roster who were sick of Pickens. Kaboly admitted he thought Hayward was one of the names but did not know for sure. "I was not told who. I know who I thought it was, but I was never told that." Kaboly added that after the Steelers traded Pickens, Kaboly learned more players were fed up and ready to see him go. "There are a lot of guys in that defense, even the offense," he said, who favored the Steelers trading him out of that locker room. "There were probably a couple of guys you would be shocked at that I did hear after the fact. They were pretty much saying, 'See ya.' They didn't want anything to do with him." Now let's go to another video. Don't forget to leave a like.
Authorized, but still, Connor spoke to 250 people for Out of the Darkness, the something Aaron Rodgers. I can't remember the rest of it, but it was a book that I read almost all of it. I petered out near the very end, and I hate when I do that, but I got busy and I just never finished it. But I learned a lot in reading it, and O'Connor clearly knows what's going on in the Aaron Rodgers inner circle. He believes that Rodgers has told the Steelers he's playing for them. He's just waiting until he can fully commit because of the personal issue that Rodgers spoke about several weeks ago that has kept him from being fully committed to football. And I think part of it, too, and I said this last week, Chris, Rodgers hates Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the offseason program. He hates them. And he decided, someone who knows him but doesn't know specifically what his thought process is now, but thinks he knows him well enough to know what he's thinking, if that makes any sense, and I think it does. You're less of a distraction if you're just not signed than if you're signed and you're not showing up for the offseason workout.
Yeah.
So just don't be signed.
Yeah.
Just don't be signed.
I could get behind that. I wouldn't be shocked if that's what's going on here. I mean, I have no idea what's going on in personal life or anything like that, but I think what you're saying and what you've heard, that makes a lot of sense. And now, hopefully, for the Steelers' sake, for all our sake, and for Aaron Rodgers to be his best, you would hope that at some point now he gets in there and starts to get a little work done. I mean, again, in the perfect world, I know he's Aaron Rodgers. He could probably show up to training camp and make it work. But, man, why wouldn't you want to get a little base, like a little feel for the organization, the players, the offense, all of that, and start to work with that? And then you could take that into the off period and, kind of fine-tune it and get your head wrapped around it a little bit better way to where you can hit training camp running. And I would think that would be one of the goals Rodgers would like to do here soon.
The Steelers' offseason program concludes with a mandatory minicamp. Remember last year, that was the big story when Rodgers left for a trip to Egypt. And then, let's just call it what it is. He lied about the whole thing of when the mandatory minicamps are traditionally scheduled. It was just like that same political crap that we see all the time where you get pushed one way and you come up with anything you can to make it better. He wasn't being truthful about when the mandatory minicamps have been in the past. He knew it was going to be that week. This year, the mandatory minicamp is June 10, 11, and 12. But the Steelers only have 6 OTA days before the mandatory minicamp. Teams can have up to 10. I think he will be there next Tuesday, May 27, when the OTAs, Phase 3 begins. That's 9 practices before training camp. That's enough time to get him properly ensconced. I think he's going to, I don't know this, but I think there's going to be a press conference this week, Chris, and he'll be there with the team next Tuesday. I'll be surprised if he's not.
I would hope so. I would like to see him there so we get good football out of him and the Steelers this year.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.
Sutton, Devontae Adams, Kupp, and now Olave. Is this just another Steelers wide receiver trade rumor that we talk about for the upcoming weeks and months, and then it ultimately doesn't happen? Or will something actually get done, like the DK Metcalf trade? The Olave rumors all started on Friday when 93.7 The Fans, Adam Crowley name-dropped Olave as a name that the Steelers are looking into. Another Steelers reporter, Nick Farabaugh, also confirmed the Olave interest by saying, sources tell Penn Live that the Steelers have called the Saints to check on Olave's availability. The Steelers are interested in the 24-year-old, but sources describe that call as a due diligence call. Okay, cool. Now what? How interested are the Saints really in trading Chris Olave? Because their roster kind of sucks, and they don't really have anyone else as close to as good as Olave in their receiver room. New coach in Kellen Moore. Derek Carr retired. They drafted Shuck in the second round. Where are they at? Are they trying to just go full rebuild and tank this year and look more into the future? Or are they starting that building process now in 2025 after drafting Shuck in the second round? My guess is it would be the latter, that they're going to try to give Shuck the best chance possible to actually be something, give him the full arsenal and weapons at his disposal, and actually maybe try to make some noise and low-key compete in this weak NFC South for 2025. That would be my guess as to what they'd be doing. But for the Steelers, an Olave trade would be dope. There is some risk with him because of his concussion history. I think he has 4 total up to this point in his pro career. And the most recent one in 2024 shut him down for the whole second half. Despite the injuries, though, he's productive. 2 1,000-yard seasons to start off, first 2 years in the NFL. And that's all while dealing with some shoddy quarterback play, having Andy Dalton, Jameis Winston, then Derek Carr for some of that. And then last year, after Carr went down, you got Spencer Rattler, although Olave wasn't even out there for the full season either. But you have no drama. You have no off-the-field stuff with him, no character concerns. And as a receiver, very smooth route runner, top-end speed, and he's versatile. You could line him up all over the field, slot, outside, whatever it is. So when you add up all the pluses that Olave brings to the table and consider some of the injury concerns, I think the overall, when you do the math, the risk in trading for Olave would be worth it for the Steelers. I think he's way more of a net positive than just looking at some of the negative stuff or some of the injury concerns. And it doesn't seem like Olave is demanding a long-term extension right now, even though he is eligible. And the Saints already picked up his 5th-year option, which is only $15.4 million. So if you're the Steelers and trade for Olave, you have him at below market rate for these next 2 seasons before even having to make a long-term commitment to him. But if he balls out for you in 2025 and wants an extension next year, okay, cool. I think that's a really good problem to have. I don't think the Steelers have an issue with paying 2 big-time receivers. It's just we want to make sure the fit is right, and clearly we didn't think that was the case with George Pickens. Now, what would it take to get Olave? We just got a 3rd-rounder for Pickens, and a lot of people have said after the fact that the 3rd was kind of a high-end offer for him. A lot of other teams that the Steelers called laughed at the thought of trading for Pickens. Like, they wouldn't have given up anything close to a 3rd. It would have been a late-round pick, like a 6th or 7th, I'm assuming. And if you look at GP and Olave right now from a status standpoint, I think they're in the same tier. They're at the same level. Olave, less volatile. I think Pickens is healthier, has way more upside. But they're about in the same spot. I think they're in the same category, both 3 years in the league. Now, the 5th-year option with Olave being a first-round pick is an added wrinkle to him and what his value is. But I think a 3rd-rounder would be fair. If Pickens went for a 3rd-rounder, I think a 3rd-rounder for Olave would be fair. But a 2nd-rounder would be more likely to have the Saints move off of Olave just because it doesn't really seem they're that eager to be trading him. Where I think it's a different case with the Steelers. We were very much willing to move off of Pickens. So 2nd-round pick, I think that could get it done. And if the Steelers ultimately did give that up for Olave, I would be good with it. I would give my stamp of approval. But it doesn't seem like anything is imminent right now. So this may be another thing that we talk about ad nauseum for the next couple months until the Steelers actually do make a move and add to this receiver room after trading Pickens. So there's that. Let me know your thoughts, though, about potentially trading for Chris Olave. What do you think it would take? Would you do it? Do you think he's one of the top options out there? Is he the best option when you compare him to the other trade candidates or even the guys that are in free agency? But real quick, before we sign off, wanted to go over some Rodgers stuff. Ian O'Connor, who was the author of the Aaron Rodgers biography, Out of Darkness, went on 93.7 The Fan last Friday and offered, from my perspective, I thought some unique insight regarding Rodgers' timeline and where the quarterback is most likely from a mentality standpoint and his desire to play football for 2025. Take a listen.
He said on McAfee's show that there were personal things going on with his life that delayed him signing with any NFL team. You talked to probably several members of Aaron Rodgers' past and maybe present personal connections to write this book. What did you infer? What did you take from him saying that, Ian?
So I'm not doing the consistent day-to-day reporting on his life that I did when I talked to 250 people in doing that book. But I have occasionally reached out, and the sense I got was I think I have a pretty good sense of what it is, and I don't think it's something that would prevent him from playing football. I just think verbally, behind the scenes, not that he guaranteed it, but he's told them, listen, I'm going to play for you, okay? I just don't want to go there and then miss part of mandatory minicamp because of my personal issues. I'm pretty sure they're going to be solved by the end of May, at least to my satisfaction, where I can give you my all. So that's where I think it is, and I think there's no way the Steelers would have waited until Will Howard late in the draft to address that position if they didn't know that it was virtually a guarantee that Rodgers would sign with them. And I actually think that as seriously as people in Pittsburgh take football, that they're going to enjoy Aaron Rodgers because I think he will concentrate on the field. He knows this is his last chance to get back to a Super Bowl. He knows it was an embarrassment in New York largely, and he's the face of that embarrassment, whether that's fair or not. That's the case. So I actually think this is – it may be me as an optimist, but I think this is going to work out. Do I think the Steelers will win the Super Bowl next year? No. But if you told me 11-6 with at least one playoff victory, the first with that franchise since, 2016?
Yep.
I think that's realistic.
I know not a lot of people have access to Rodgers, and O'Connor isn't talking to him directly, but he knows and has talked to a lot of people that are close to Rodgers because obviously he had to do that to write the book. This is the first time we've heard of any sort of like time frame related to Rodgers behind the scenes stuff, because when he went on McAfee, it just seemed pretty open-ended whenever he was talking about personal issues. You didn't know how long it was going to take for that stuff to resolve, and you didn't know how much that was going to affect his decision to ultimately play football for this upcoming season. And according to O'Connor, it seems like May is when things will come to a close, and it shouldn't affect Rodgers' decision to play this season or whether or not he wants to play. So I think Rodgers to the Steelers is happening. I think it's just happening. I think too many people of note are basically saying it's a done deal. And a lot of these people have been saying it for most of the offseason, but Kaboli and Dulac recently came out and said it's like a 90 to 99% chance that this is a done deal. So I think we know what's really going on at this point. Whenever you add up everything that's taken place over the last couple months, Rodgers gave the indication to the Steelers that he wants to play here. He just can't commit to the offseason just yet because of some of the personal stuff that's going on. And he didn't want a repeat of last year. So if he would have signed last month and he still has some of this other stuff going on behind the scenes that he has to pay attention to, and was going to miss maybe OTAs or minicamp, he didn't want the drama popping up again, just like last year with the Jets and his trip to Egypt. Because there's nothing to criticize if you don't show up while you're not employed by the team, right? If you're not employed by a team, you don't have to do anything. Aaron Rodgers is a free agent. So I think Rodgers to the Steelers is happening. Matter of when, not if. Dude wants to play football. I think that's been clear. Not only, like, if you go back to when he initially signed with the Jets and you hear how he was talking, he was talking about trying to play another like 3-4 years. And then you see how this season ended with the Jets and the talks and conversations he was having at the end of the season. It was clear that he was interested in playing football. He would have wanted to run it back with the Jets. They didn't want him, so he's a free agent. And he doesn't have ties to any of these other teams. He doesn't have any like loyalties to any of these other teams right now. So he can do what he wants, take care of his business on the behind-the-scenes front. And then, yeah, if he wants to play football, clearly the Steelers are the most feasible option. The interest has been there from the start of free agency, and that's where all signs are pointing. So it's going to happen. My money's on it, literally, because I do have money on the Steelers over-under. Now, that's less related to Aaron Rodgers and more about Tomlin has not had a season under 500. So, yeah, I'm going to bet us over 8.5 wins. I'm just going to do it until Tomlin proves me wrong on that. That's going to be the yearly bet. And then I also got, I think I said this on one of these shows a couple months ago. I got Rodgers.
NFL Insider says all signs point to Aaron Rodgers signing with specific team. One of the looming questions this NFL offseason is where will quarterback Aaron Rodgers sign in free agency? According to NFL insider Matt Bowen, he's destined to ink a deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Rodgers has been linked to the Steelers for much of his free agency, but Mason Rudolph did return to Pittsburgh on a short-term deal, and the team also drafted Ohio State quarterback Will Howard in the 6th round of the 2025 NFL Draft. Nevertheless, Bowen suggests Rodgers will eventually sign with the Steelers. All signs are pointing at Rodgers heading to Pittsburgh, where he will have a strong run game foundation under coordinator Arthur Smith and a play-action system that can keep the pocket firm. Bowen writes, the quick game will play a role here too, given Rodgers' accelerated release time and field vision, and his number one option would be newly acquired receiver DK Metcalf, who thrives at creating explosive plays. But with diminished mobility and declining pocket poise, Rodgers can't consistently extend or create on second reaction plays. He's a pocket thrower at this stage of his career, and Smith's game plan should reflect that. In 2024, Rodgers threw 28 touchdown passes and 11 interceptions with the New York Jets. His 48.0 QBR ranked 25th in the league. By February, the Jets had notified Rodgers the organization did not plan on bringing him back. Rodgers revealed on the Pat McAfee show in April that he was dealing with circumstances in his personal life, which in turn prolonged his decision to sign with a team in 2025. The Steelers have 3 quarterbacks on the roster in Rudolph, Howard, and Skylar Thompson, none of whom were full-time starters in the NFL. There's certainly a place for Rodgers in Pittsburgh, but there is also the possibility that the longtime quarterback joins another team or ultimately retires after 2 decades in the NFL. With mandatory minicamp quickly approaching in June, there are rumblings Rodgers will be in a Steelers uniform by then. And you fan, what do you think about Aaron Rodgers' situation? Leave your opinion in the comments.